The alien girl was found shivering beside the cargo, until a human wrapped her in his jacket. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The cargo bay of interstellar transport vessel Horizon was never meant to be warm. Miles Reed knew this all too well as he made his rounds through the vast, dimly lit space filled with shipping containers and supply crates. The recycled air carried a perpetual chill that penetrated even the standard-issue crew uniform. Miles checked his manifest tablet one more time. Routine inspection, Section C, 17. The shipment of medical supplies for the outer colonies needed verification before their arrival at Outpost Vega. Nothing unusual, just another day aboard the ITV Horizon for the cargo supervisor. Until he heard it. A soft, barely perceptible sound. Miles paused, tilting his head. There it was again, a faint rustling followed by what sounded like chattering teeth. He placed his tablet on a nearby crate and followed the noise, weaving between towering stacks of containers. The sound led him to a small gap between two large cargo pods. Crouching down, Miles activated his wrist light and pointed it into the darkness. A pair of enormous, reflective eyes stared back at him. Miles jumped back, his heart hammering in his chest. What the? The light revealed more details as his eyes adjusted. It wasn't some cargo bay pest or mechanical malfunction. It was a child, or at least something that resembled one. A small, huddled figure with mottled blue-gray skin and those large, silver-flecked eyes. Most striking were the delicate, almost translucent gill-like structures that fluttered along the sides of its neck. A Neridian. Miles had only seen them in educational broadcasts. Aquatic humanoids from the oceanic moon Nereid 4. They rarely left their watery home planet and almost never ventured onto human vessels. And this one was just a child. A girl, he guessed, from the finer features of her face and the pearl-like ornaments adorning her head tendrils. She couldn't have been more than the equivalent of an 8-year-old human child. She was shivering violently. "Hey there," Miles said softly, keeping his light angled away from her sensitive eyes. "Are you okay?" The girl pressed herself further between the containers, her movements sluggish. Miles had done his xenobiology training, enough to know that Neridians were highly temperature-sensitive. Their homeworld was a warm, oceanic environment. The frigid cargo bay must be agonizing for her. Without hesitation, Miles shrugged off his jacket, standard issue with thermal regulation technology designed for the cold corners of space vessels. He slowly extended it toward her. "It's okay," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "This will help with the cold. I'm not going to hurt you." The Neridian girl stared at him, her silver-flecked eyes wary but desperate. The chattering of her teeth, actually small, pearlescent structures more like scale plates, had grown more pronounced. "My name is Miles," he continued, still holding out the jacket. "I work on this ship. Can you understand me?" A small nod. The Universal Education Initiative had ensured most species in the Galactic Alliance could comprehend basic unified standard. "Good. I'm going to help you, okay? You're freezing." After another moment of hesitation, the girl reached out with a trembling, webbed hand and took the jacket. She fumbled with it briefly before Miles gently helped her slip it on. It engulfed her small frame entirely, but the thermal technology activated immediately, adjusting to her body temperature needs. The relief on her face was immediate and heartbreaking. Her shivering began to subside, and those large eyes blinked at him with what Miles interpreted as gratitude. "Better?" he asked. She nodded again, pulling the jacket tighter around herself. "What's your name?" Miles asked, settling down into a cross-legged position a respectful distance away. "Inaya," she stammered, her voice like water flowing over smooth stones. "Naya, that's a beautiful name," Miles said. "Can you tell me how you got here, Naya?" The girl's eyes darted around fearfully. "Hiding," she whispered. Miles nodded slowly. "From what? Or who?" Before she could answer, his comm unit buzzed. Captain Eliza Parker's voice came through sharp and clear. "Reed, report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation." Miles glanced at the small, frightened alien child. Captain, I found someone, in the cargo bay that requires immediate attention. A pause. Explain. A Neridian child, ma'am. A girl. She appears to be a stowaway, and she's in distress. Permission to bring her to medical first? Another, longer pause. Granted, but I want a full report afterward. This complicates things. Understood, Captain. Read out. Miles turned back to Naya, who was watching him with those wide, silver-flecked eyes. I'm going to take you somewhere warmer, okay? And our doctor can make sure you're all right. Would that be okay, Naya? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Can you walk? Miles asked. Naya attempted to stand, but wobbled precariously. Miles noticed for the first time how dry her skin appeared. Neridians needed high humidity as well as warmth. How about I carry you? Would that be all right? After a moment's consideration, Naya held out her arms. Miles gently lifted her, surprised by how light she was. Her skin felt cool and slightly textured, like fine sandpaper. He could feel her small heart racing against his chest as he carefully navigated through the cargo bay toward the elevator. As they ascended toward the medical bay, Miles couldn't help but wonder how a Neridian child had ended up alone in the cargo hold of a human transport vessel bound for the outer colonies. Whatever the explanation, one thing was clear. This was no ordinary stowaway situation. Dr. Liam Carter looked up from his terminal when Miles entered the medical bay with Naya in his arms. His eyebrows shot up at the sight. Well, that's not something you see every day, the doctor remarked, immediately standing. A Neridian? On our ship. Found her in the cargo bay, Miles explained, still cradling the child who was now eyeing the doctor with apprehension. She's freezing and probably dehydrated. Her name is Naya. Dr. Carter's professional demeanor took over. Let's get her into the environmental chamber. We can adjust the temperature and humidity in there. Miles carried Naya to the glass-enclosed room at the far end of the medical bay. The chamber was designed for treating patients with specific environmental needs, a necessity on interspecies vessels, though the Horizon rarely carried non-human passengers. Dr. Carter worked the controls, and soon warm, humid air began to fill the chamber. You can set her down on the examination table. The chamber will be at optimal Neridian conditions in about 2 minutes. Miles gently placed Naya on the table, but she clutched at his sleeve when he tried to step back. It's okay, he assured her. This room is going to get nice and warm for you, with plenty of moisture in the air. Like your home. Naya reluctantly released him, but kept her eyes fixed on his face. I need to talk to the doctor for a minute, Miles said. I'll be right outside where you can see me. Is that okay? After a moment, she nodded, pulling his jacket tighter around her small shoulders. Miles stepped out of the chamber and joined Dr. Carter at the monitoring station. Her vital signs are stabilizing, the doctor noted, studying the readings. Body temperature is still low but rising appropriately. Respiratory function showing signs of stress, probably from the dry air in the cargo bay. Nothing that won't resolve with proper environmental conditions. Any signs of injury? Miles asked. None that I can detect from initial scans, but I'll need to conduct a more thorough examination once she's stabilized. Miles glanced back at Naya, who was watching them intently from inside the chamber. The warmth and humidity were clearly having a positive effect. Her breathing seemed easier, and her skin had taken on a healthier blue hue. How does a Neridian child end up alone in the cargo bay of a human transport vessel? Dr. Carter asked quietly. That's what I intend to find out, Miles replied. But I need to report to the captain first. She's expecting me on the bridge. Dr. Carter nodded. I'll continue monitoring the child. You should go. The captain isn't known for her patience. Miles approached the environmental chamber once more. Naya, I need to speak with my captain, the person in charge of this ship. Dr. Carter will take good care of you while I'm gone. I promise I'll come back soon. Is that all right? Naya's silver-flecked eyes studied him for a long moment before she gave a small nod. You can keep my jacket for now, Miles added with a smile. He left the medical bay with reluctance, his mind racing with questions. The Horizon was on a routine supply run to the outer colonies, not a passenger vessel. They hadn't made any stops at Nereid 4 or any of the Neridian outposts. How had a child from an aquatic species found her way aboard? And more importantly, why? Captain Eliza Parker was waiting when Miles arrived on the bridge, her tall figure silhouetted against the backdrop of stars visible through the main viewport. She turned at the sound of the door, her expression as stern as ever. "Report, read." Miles stood at attention. "Captain, I discovered a Neridian child hiding in the cargo bay during my routine inspection. She appears to be approximately 8 years old by human standards. She identified herself as Naya. She was suffering from hypothermia and likely dehydration due to the environmental conditions in the cargo bay. Dr. Carter is treating her now in the medical bay's environmental chamber." Parker's frown deepened. "And how exactly did a Neridian child find her way onto my ship?" "Unknown at this time, Captain." She was too distressed for detailed questioning. All she said was that she was hiding. "Hiding?" Parker repeated, her voice flat. "Convenient timing." Miles tilted his head. "Ma'am." Parker gestured to the communications officer. "Lieutenant Taylor, play the transmission we received 20 minutes ago." Lieutenant Emily Taylor nodded and tapped at her console. A moment later, a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the bridge. The stern face of a Galaxian official appeared, immediately recognizable by the distinctive ridged forehead and amber eyes typical of the reptilian species. "This is Commander Drax of the Galaxian enforcement vessel Relentless," the official announced, his voice carrying the characteristic rasp of his species. "Interstellar Transport Vessel Horizon, be advised that we have reason to believe you are harboring fugitives from Galaxian justice. Prepare to be boarded for inspection upon interception. Any resistance will be considered a hostile act against the Galaxian Confederacy. Relentless out." The transmission ended, leaving a heavy silence on the bridge. "Galaxians," Miles muttered. The reptilian species controlled several key trade routes in this sector, and they were known for their rigid adherence to their own particular interpretation of interstellar law. "Indeed," Captain Parker said, "and they're on an intercept course. They'll reach us in approximately 6 hours." Miles frowned. "Fugitives? Plural? I only found one child." "Which suggests there may be others," Parker replied. "Or the Galaxians are using the plural as a standard protocol. Either way, we need answers before they arrive." She fixed Miles with a pointed stare. "I want you to return to the medical bay and get as much information from the child as possible. Find out who she's running from and why. And most importantly, find out if there are others aboard my ship." "Yes, Captain," Miles responded. "But with respect, she's just a child and still recovering." "I don't want to read," Parker interrupted, her voice softening slightly. "I understand your concern, but we need to know what we're dealing with before the Galaxians board us. They're not known for their gentle questioning techniques." Miles nodded grimly. "Understood, Captain." "Dismissed." "And read," Parker added as he turned to leave. "Use that soft touch of yours. It might be our best asset right now." When Miles returned to the medical bay, he found Naya sitting upright on the examination table, looking considerably better. Dr. Carter had provided her with a nutrient solution specially formulated for Neridian physiology, and her skin had regained its healthy blue-gray luster. She was still wearing Miles's jacket, though it was now unzipped as the environmental chamber provided sufficient warmth. "How is she?" Miles asked Dr. Carter quietly. "Physically, she's responding well to treatment," the doctor replied. "Temperature and hydration levels approaching normal parameters for her species. I gave her a mild sedative to help with the anxiety, but she's fully conscious and coherent." Miles nodded. "Has she said anything else?" "Not a word. She'll only respond to direct questions, and even then, minimally." Dr. Carter lowered his voice further. "What did the captain say?" "We have a Galaxian enforcement vessel on an intercept course. They claim we're harboring fugitives." The doctor's eyes widened. "Galaxians? That's not good." "No, it's not," Miles agreed. "Which is why I need to talk to her." He approached the environmental chamber and entered slowly, giving Naya plenty of time to see him coming. Her large eyes followed his movements. but her expression remained guarded. "Hey there," Miles said gently, sitting on a stool near the examination table. "You're looking much better." Naya nodded slightly. "Warm now," she said, her voice still carrying that fluid quality despite its softness. "I'm glad," Miles smiled. "Dr. Carter says you're going to be fine." There was a moment of silence as Miles considered how to proceed. Direct questioning might frighten her, but they were running out of time. "Naya," he began carefully, "we need to talk about how you got on our ship. We want to help you, but to do that, we need to understand what's happening." The Neridian child's gills fluttered in what Miles recognized as an anxiety response. "It's okay," he assured her. "You're safe here. But there's a Galaxian ship coming." At the word Galaxian, Naya's entire body tensed. Her silver-flecked eyes widened in unmistakable fear. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Miles asked gently. Naya wrapped her arms around herself, clutching the jacket tightly. "Not just me," she whispered. Miles leaned forward slightly. "Who else, Naya? Is someone else hiding on this ship?" She hesitated, then nodded almost imperceptibly. "Who?" Miles pressed. "My brother," she said, her voice barely audible. "Torin. And Vela." "Vela. Our guardian," Naya explained, her words coming faster now. "She was taking us home when the Galaxians attacked our transport. They killed everyone else. We got to an escape pod, but it was damaged. Vela said the only way to survive was to find another ship. When yours docked at the emergency beacon, she got us aboard." Miles frowned. "We didn't respond to any emergency beacon. We haven't deviated from our course to the outer colonies." Naya's brow furrowed in confusion. "But Vela said." She stopped abruptly, her eyes darting to the door of the medical bay. Miles turned to follow her gaze. Captain Parker stood in the doorway, her expression grim. "Reed," she said, "we have a problem. Security has detected unauthorized access to our environmental systems. Someone's attempting to alter the oxygen levels in the crew quarters." Before Miles could respond, the ship's alarm began to blare, and red emergency lights flashed throughout the medical bay. Dr. Carter rushed to his console. "Life support systems are being overridden," he called out. "Oxygen levels dropping in crew quarters," and he looked up, his face pale. "And the bridge." Parker's hand went to her sidearm. "This is no stowaway situation. We're under attack." Naya shrank back on the examination table, her eyes wide with terror. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not right. Vela wouldn't. Where are they?" Parker demanded, striding into the environmental chamber. "Where are your accomplices?" "Captain," Miles interjected, stepping between Parker and the frightened child. "She's just a distraction," Parker cut him off. "While her associates sabotage my ship." "No," Naya cried, tears forming in her large eyes. "We were just hiding. Vela said we had to hide until we reached the colonies. She said humans would help us." Parker's comm unit buzzed urgently. "Captain," came the strained voice of Lieutenant Taylor. "Security footage shows an adult Neridian in environmental control. She's with a Neridian adolescent. Security teams are en route, but the doors have been sealed." "Vela and Torin," Naya whispered, her voice trembling. Miles looked between the terrified child and his stern-faced captain. "There has to be an explanation," he insisted. "Why would they attack a ship they're stowing away on? It doesn't make sense." "Sense or not, my crew is at risk," Parker replied sharply. "Dr. Carter, initiate emergency protocols for the affected sections. Reed, get to environmental control. You've established rapport with one Neridian. Maybe you can talk the others down before my security team has to take more drastic measures." "Yes, Captain," Miles acknowledged. He turned to Naya. "I'm going to find your brother and guardian, okay? I'll make sure they're safe, but you need to stay here with Dr. Carter." Naya grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Please don't let them hurt Vela and Torin," she begged. "The Galaxians already took our parents. They're all I have left." Miles gently squeezed her small hand. "I'll do everything I can," he promised. "But I need you to tell me quickly, why are the Galaxians after you?" Naya's gills fluttered rapidly. "Because of what we know," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. about what they're really doing in the Nereid system, which is, Parker pressed. Naya's silver-flecked eyes met the captain's. Genocide, she said simply. They're poisoning our oceans. Slowly, so no one would notice until it was too late. Miles and Parker exchanged shocked glances. That's why they want us, Naya continued, tears streaming down her face. We have proof. Vela was taking it to the coalition authorities when they found us. The ship shuddered suddenly, and the lights flickered. The alarm tone changed to a higher pitch. Hull breach in Section E14, announced the ship's automated system. Emergency protocols engaged. That's near environmental control, Parker said grimly. She activated her comm. All security teams converge on Section E14. Full tactical alert. Captain, Miles protested, if what Naya says is true, then we have an even bigger problem on our hands, Parker finished for him. Because that Galaxian vessel will be here in less than 6 hours, and they're not coming to issue parking citations. She holstered her sidearm and headed for the door. Come with me, Reed. Now. Miles looked back at Naya, who was watching him with desperate, pleading eyes. I'll find them, he assured her, and I'll help them understand. As he followed Captain Parker from the medical bay, Miles couldn't shake the feeling that the jacket he'd given to a shivering alien child had been the first thread in a tapestry far larger and more dangerous than he could have imagined. The horizon was about to become the center of a conflict that extended far beyond its hull, and somehow, Miles Reed, cargo supervisor, was now caught in the middle of it all. Miles jogged alongside Captain Parker as they made their way through the corridors of the horizon. Emergency lights cast alternating shadows across their path, and crew members rushed in organized chaos to their emergency stations. Captain, Miles said between breaths, I think we need to consider the possibility that the Neridians aren't attacking us. Parker didn't slow her pace. The evidence suggests otherwise, Reed. But it doesn't make sense, Miles insisted. Why would they sabotage a ship they're hiding on? And that hull breach, what if they're not the cause, but the target? That made Parker pause momentarily. Explain. What if someone else is already aboard? Someone who knows they're here and wants to stop them before they can reach the coalition with their evidence. Parker's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Galaxian advance agents? It's possible, Miles said. The Galaxians are known for their infiltration tactics. The captain considered this for a moment before activating her comm unit. Lieutenant Taylor, run a complete scan for non-human life signs throughout the ship. I want to know exactly how many guests we're hosting. Yes, Captain, came Taylor's prompt reply. They continued toward environmental control, the ship's alarm still blaring in the background. As they rounded the corner to Section E12, they encountered a security team led by Chief Brandon Tate, a stocky man with a perpetual scowl. Captain, Tate reported, we've sealed off all access points to environmental control, but we're unable to breach the doors. They've been locked down from the inside with some kind of override code. Parker frowned. That shouldn't be possible without command authorization. Exactly, ma'am, Tate agreed grimly. Which suggests we either have a traitor among the crew or someone with exceptional hacking skills, Miles finished. He turned to Parker. Captain, let me try to communicate with them. If Naya's guardian is as desperate to protect evidence of genocide as she claims, the last thing we want is to back her into a corner. Parker studied him for a moment, then nodded curtly. Very well, Reed. You have 5 minutes to establish communication. After that, we breach regardless of the consequences. Miles approached the sealed door to environmental control, noting the red lockdown indicator glowing ominously on the access panel. He activated the external comm unit. This is Miles Reed, cargo supervisor of the ITV Horizon, he announced. I'm speaking to Vela and Torin. I've met Naya. She's safe in our medical bay. Silence greeted him. Miles tried again. Vela, Naya told us why you're running from the Galaxians. We want to help, but you need to stop whatever you're doing to our systems. After a tense moment, a female voice responded, the fluid quality similar to Naya's but deeper, more mature. Your ship altered course, the voice said accusingly. You're taking us directly to the Galaxian vessel. Miles glanced at Parker, who shook her head in confusion. That's not true, Miles replied. We're maintaining our original course to the outer colonies. The Galaxian vessel is pursuing us, but we haven't changed course. Lies. Another voice, younger but with a harder edge. Torin, Miles guessed. We monitored your navigation systems. The course changed 30 minutes ago. Miles turned to Parker, his expression questioning. The captain activated her comm unit. Lieutenant Taylor, verify our navigational course. Has there been any deviation in the last hour? A moment of silence. Then, Captain, there was a minor course adjustment registered at 1,437 hours. It wasn't authorized by the bridge. Parker's face hardened. Who authorized it? The system shows Lieutenant Commander Wells' authorization code, but he's been in engineering for the past 3 hours. Someone used Wells' code, Miles said quietly. The Galaxians already have someone aboard. Parker nodded grimly. Or we have a traitor. She turned to the security team. Chief Tate, I want this ship swept from bow to stern. Find whoever altered our course. Miles returned his attention to the comm unit. Vela, we believe someone on board has compromised our systems, possibly a Galaxian agent. They altered our course without authorization. We're not your enemy. A tense silence followed. Then the female voice responded, more measured this time. If what you say is true, then we are all in danger. The Galaxians will kill everyone aboard to ensure their secret dies with us. Then let us help you, Miles urged. Open the door. We can work together to find the infiltrator and restore our systems. Another pause. The boy stays with me, Vela said finally. As insurance. Miles looked to Parker, who nodded reluctantly. Agreed, Miles replied. But you need to restore our life support systems immediately. The door's indicator light changed from red to green with a soft chime. As it slid open, Miles found himself face to face with an adult Neridian female. Vela was taller than human standard, with the same blue-gray skin as Naya, but darker markings along her arms and face. The gill structures on her neck were more pronounced, and her silver-flecked eyes regarded them with cautious intelligence. Behind her stood a Neridian adolescent, Torin, his posture defensive and wary. You're the one who helped my sister, Torin said, his eyes fixed on Miles. She told us through the ship's comm system. Miles nodded. She was freezing in the cargo bay. Anyone would have helped. Not anyone, Vela said quietly. Not in our experience. She stepped aside, allowing them entry to environmental control. Your systems were already compromised when we arrived. We've been trying to isolate the sabotage. Parker followed Miles into the room, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. You expect us to believe that? Captain, Miles cautioned. Let's hear them out. Vela moved to the environmental control panel, her webbed fingers dancing across the interface with surprising dexterity. Someone inserted a recursive algorithm into your life support systems. It was designed to trigger when we reached these coordinates. She pointed to a section of the display. Here, near the Cygnus passage. Parker leaned forward to examine the data. That's a known Galaxian patrol route. Exactly, Vela confirmed. The algorithm would gradually reduce oxygen levels throughout the ship, rendering the crew unconscious. From the outside, it would appear to be a tragic system malfunction. Clean and efficient, Parker muttered. The Galaxians could board, find you, and no one would be the wiser. Precisely, Vela agreed. When we detected the course change, we attempted to access your systems to correct it. That's when we discovered the sabotage. We were trying to isolate it when your security teams arrived. Miles studied the environmental controls. So the hull breach? Not us, Torin said firmly. We heard the alarm at the same time you did. Captain Parker's comm unit chirped. Captain, came Lieutenant Taylor's urgent voice. Sensors detect another life form in Section E14, near the hull breach. Biochemical signature matches Galaxian physiology. Parker's eyes met Vela's. It seems you were telling the truth. The question is, Vela replied grimly, how many more are there? The next hour passed in a flurry of coordinated activity. Captain Parker organized security teams to search for the Galaxian infiltrator while Miles worked with Vela to restore the ship's systems. Torrin was eventually persuaded to join his sister in the medical bay, where Dr. Carter could monitor both children's condition. Miles found himself impressed by Vela's technical skills. Her understanding of complex systems rivaled that of the Horizon's best engineers. "You're not just a Guardian, are you?" Miles asked as they worked side by side at the environmental control station. Vela's gills fluttered in what Miles had come to recognize as a Neridian equivalent of a smile. "I was a senior environmental engineer on Nereid 4. That's how we discovered what the Galaxians were doing." "The ocean poisoning." Vela nodded, her expression darkening. "They've been introducing a synthetic compound into our waters for years. It's tasteless, odorless, and nearly undetectable unless you know exactly what to look for. The compound bioaccumulates in our bodies over time." "Causing what?" Miles asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Reproductive failure," Vela said quietly. "Within 3 generations, there would be no more Neridians. Our entire species, gone. And the Galaxians would simply move in and claim our resource-rich world as abandoned territory." Miles felt sick. "How did you discover it?" "I was conducting routine water quality tests in areas where our people were experiencing higher rates of reproductive difficulties. I found anomalies that didn't match any known natural compounds. When I expanded my testing to other regions, I found the same anomalies everywhere, except they were more concentrated near Galaxian research outposts." "And you gathered evidence?" Vela nodded. "Samples, test results, distribution patterns. Enough to prove deliberate contamination. My partner and I were preparing to present our findings to the Coalition Science Council when the Galaxians struck. They attacked our research facility, killed everyone, including my partner." Her voice caught slightly, and Miles noticed the darkening of her gill structures, a sign of deep emotion among Neridians. "I was off-site with the children that day," she continued after a moment. "Torrin and Naya are my partner's nephew and niece. Their parents were also killed in the attack. I managed to get the children and our evidence aboard a transport bound for Coalition space, but the Galaxians intercepted us." "And now they're coming for you again," Miles said grimly. "Yes, and they'll kill everyone on this ship to keep their secret." Vela's silver-flecked eyes met his. "I'm sorry for bringing this danger to your people." Before Miles could respond, Captain Parker's voice came through the comm system. "Reed, we've cornered the Galaxian infiltrator in cargo section D8. But we have a new problem. The Relentless has accelerated. They'll intercept us in less than 2 hours." Miles exchanged a worried glance with Vela. "Understood, Captain. We've almost finished restoring environmental systems. We'll join you on the bridge shortly." As they made their way to the bridge, Miles couldn't help but notice how the crew's expressions changed when they saw Vela. Curiosity mixed with wariness, but not the outright hostility he had feared. The Horizon's crew was accustomed to interspecies cooperation, even if Neridians were an uncommon sight. On the bridge, Captain Parker was engaged in intense discussion with her officers. A tactical display showed the Galaxian vessel Relentless closing rapidly. "Status report," Parker demanded as Miles and Vela arrived. "Environmental systems fully restored, Captain," Miles reported. "No permanent damage. And our uninvited guest." "Secure in the brig," Lieutenant Taylor responded. "He's not talking, but we found this." She held up a small device. "It's a neural disruptor, Galaxian military grade. One shot would have paralyzed a victim long enough for, well, whatever he had planned." Parker turned to Vela. "Your evidence of the Galaxian operation, where is it?" "Here," Vela replied, removing a small crystalline device from a hidden pocket in her garment. "Everything we discovered about their systematic poisoning of our oceans. Water samples, molecular analysis, distribution patterns, projected population decline rates." Parker examined the crystal. "This won't mean much without Coalition scientists to verify it." "The raw data is unaltered," Vela insisted. "Any competent xenobiologist or environmental scientist can verify the findings." "The problem," Parker said, returning the crystal, is reaching those scientists before the Relentless reaches us. We're a transport vessel, not a warship. We can't outrun or outfight a Galaxian enforcement vessel. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Miles studied the tactical display, his mind racing. What if we don't have to? He said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. Explain, Parker ordered. Miles pointed to the star chart. We're approaching the Cygnus Passage. It's a narrow corridor of stable space through a particularly dense asteroid field. The Galaxians chose this interception point deliberately. Once we're in the passage, we're effectively trapped. Your point. Parker pressed. What if we don't take the passage? What if we go through the asteroid field instead? Captain Parker's eyebrows shot up. That's suicide, Reed. No ship our size has successfully navigated that field. No human ship, Vela interjected, her eyes bright with sudden understanding. But Neridians are natural navigators. Our entire evolution occurred in three-dimensional oceanic environments with constantly shifting currents and obstacles. You're suggesting you could navigate us through the asteroid field? Parker asked skeptically. With your pilot's cooperation, yes, Vela affirmed. Our spatial perception is more acute than humans, particularly in dynamic environments. I can see patterns in the asteroid movements that your sensors might miss. Parker studied Vela thoughtfully. And if you're wrong, then we die, Vela said simply. But if we continue on our current course, the Galaxians will board us, kill everyone, and an entire species will be condemned to extinction. The captain turned to her pilot. Specialist Hayes, your assessment? Tyler Hayes, the Horizon's lead pilot, ran a hand through his short brown hair. It's risky as hell, Captain, but with the Neridians' help, it might just be possible. Parker paced the bridge briefly, weighing her options. Finally, she nodded decisively. Plot the course, Hayes. We're going through the asteroid field. The next 40 minutes were the most tense Miles had ever experienced aboard the Horizon. As they approached the asteroid field, the Relentless continued to gain on them, now less than 30 minutes from intercept range. Vela stood beside Pilot Hayes at the navigation console, her webbed hands hovering over a specially configured interface that translated her movements into navigational inputs. Dr. Carter had brought Naya and Torrin to the bridge at Vela's request. Her concentration would be enhanced by their presence, she explained, a peculiarity of Neridian psychology. Miles noticed how Naya still wore his jacket, even though she no longer needed it for warmth. When she caught him looking, she offered a small smile, her silver-flecked eyes reflecting the starlight from the view screen. Entering asteroid field perimeter in 30 seconds, Hayes announced, his voice tense but controlled. Captain Parker activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, secure for extreme evasive maneuvers. This is not a drill. The first asteroids appeared on the view screen, massive chunks of rock and ice drifting in seemingly random patterns. But as they drew closer, Miles began to see what had made this field so dangerous. The asteroids weren't simply drifting, they were rotating and colliding, creating a chaotic, unpredictable environment that no conventional navigation system could reliably predict. Relentless is hailing us, Lieutenant Taylor reported. They're ordering us to maintain course for the Cygnus Passage or face immediate hostile action. No response, Parker ordered. Specialist Hayes, take us in. Yes, Captain, Hayes acknowledged. His hands moved in perfect synchronization with Vela's as they guided the ship toward the asteroid field. The moment they crossed the perimeter, the Horizon shuddered as the gravitational forces of countless massive objects began to tug at the hull. On the tactical display, the Relentless slowed its approach, clearly hesitant to follow them into the dangerous field. They're firing warning shots, Taylor announced as bright energy pulses flashed past the Horizon's stern. Maintain course, Parker commanded. Miles watched in amazement as Vela's movements became almost hypnotic, flowing, rhythmic gestures that somehow anticipated the movement of the asteroids seconds before they occurred. Hayes followed her lead, his own movements becoming more fluid as he adapted to her style. The Horizon danced through the asteroid field, sometimes with mere meters to spare as massive rocks scraped past their shields. The inertial dampeners struggled to compensate for the sharp maneuvers, causing the deck to lurch beneath their feet. "Relentless is following us in," Taylor reported, her voice tight. "They're still firing, trying to disable our engines." A massive asteroid loomed directly ahead, rotating slowly to reveal a narrow crevice running across its surface. "There," Vela said, her voice strangely calm amid the chaos. "Through that opening." Hayes looked incredulous. "That gap is barely wider than our ship." "Trust me," Vela insisted. "It connects to a relatively clear path through the densest part of the field. The Galaxian vessel is too large to follow." Parker met Miles's gaze, silently seeking his input. He gave a small nod. After a moment's hesitation, she turned to Hayes. "Do it." Hayes adjusted their course, accelerating toward the massive asteroid. The gap grew larger on the view screen, but still alarmingly narrow for a vessel of the Horizon's size. "Relentless is still pursuing," Taylor reported. "They're charging weapons." "All power to aft shields," Parker ordered. "Brace for impact." The Horizon shuddered as energy blasts struck their rear shields. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. "Shield integrity at 60%, an engineer called out. "Distance to gap, 500 meters, Hayes announced, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. Miles found himself holding his breath as the massive walls of the asteroid crevice filled the view screen. Vela's movements became even more precise, her focus absolute as she guided Hayes through minute adjustments to their approach vector. 300 meters, 200, 100. The ship seemed to groan as they slipped into the narrow passage, rock walls scraping against their shields with a sound like thunder. The lights flickered as power was diverted to maintain shield integrity. "Relentless is firing again," Taylor called out. An explosion rocked the ship as an energy blast struck the asteroid just behind them, sending fragments crashing against their aft shields. "Shield integrity at 30%. Stay on course," Parker ordered, her knuckles white as she gripped the arms of her command chair. The passage seemed endless, the walls closing in around them as the Horizon pushed forward. Miles glanced at Naya and Torin, who stood watching their guardian with expressions of absolute trust despite the danger. "Passage narrows ahead," Hayes warned, his voice strained. "We can make it," Vela assured him, her hands continuing their fluid dance across the interface. The ship tilted sharply as they navigated a bend in the crevice, the hull groaning under the stress. Warning signals blared from multiple stations. "Structural integrity compromised in sections C4 through C7," an engineer reported urgently. "Evacuate those sections," Parker commanded. "Seal emergency bulkheads." 100 meters to exit, Hayes announced. On the tactical display, Miles could see the Relentless had stopped at the entrance to the crevice, unable to follow a vessel of the Horizon's size, let alone their own larger craft. "They're charging their main weapon array," Taylor warned. "They're going to try to collapse the passage on us." "Full power to engines," Parker ordered. "Get us out of here, Hayes." The ship surged forward, straining against the gravitational forces pulling at it from all sides. The walls of the crevice blurred as they accelerated toward a pinpoint of open space ahead. 50 meters, 2010. A blinding flash lit up the view screen as the Relentless fired its main weapons at the asteroid. The entire structure began to shake violently around them. "Now," Vela cried, making a sweeping gesture across the interface. Hayes slammed the controls forward, and the Horizon shot out of the crevice just as it collapsed behind them. The shockwave caught their stern, sending the ship tumbling into open space amid a cloud of asteroid fragments. "Stabilizers offline," Hayes shouted over the blaring alarms. "Manual control unresponsive. Auxiliary power to stabilizers," Parker commanded. "Get us back on course, Hayes." Miles grabbed a console to steady himself as the ship continued to spin. Through the chaos, he saw Vela still standing at the navigation interface, her movements never faltering despite the lurching deck beneath her feet. Her eyes were closed in intense concentration as her webbed hands continued their flowing patterns. Gradually, miraculously, the horizon's tumble began to slow. The stabilizers hummed back to life, and the ship's orientation steadied. "Stabilizers back online," Hayes reported, amazement evident in his voice. She was compensating for the tumble manually through the navigation interface. "I've never seen anything like it." As the ship leveled out, everyone on the bridge turned to look at Vela, who finally lowered her hands and opened her eyes. "The passage has collapsed completely," Taylor confirmed, checking her sensors. "The Relentless is blocked on the other side. They can't pursue us through the asteroid field without risking their own destruction." A cheer erupted across the bridge. Naya ran to Vela, wrapping her arms around her guardian's waist. Torin followed more sedately, but his relief was evident in the relaxation of his gill structures. Captain Parker approached Vela, her typically stern expression softened with respect. "That was exceptional navigation, Vela. You've saved my ship and my crew." "And you've saved my people," Vela replied simply, "by helping us reach Coalition space with our evidence." Parker nodded, then turned to address the bridge. "Set course for Outpost Vega. Maximum sustainable speed. And give me a secure channel to Coalition Command. I think they'll be very interested in our passengers and their evidence." As the bridge crew returned to their duties with renewed purpose, Miles approached Naya, who was still clinging to Vela's side. "I think you might need a new jacket," he said with a smile, noting how the environmental systems had been adjusted to a comfortable temperature for Neridian physiology throughout the ship. Naya looked down at the oversized jacket she still wore, then back up at Miles with those large, silver-flecked eyes. "Can I keep it?" she asked softly. "As a reminder?" "A reminder of what?" Miles asked. "That sometimes," she said, her liquid voice solemn, "a simple act of kindness can change everything." Miles felt a lump form in his throat. He glanced at Vela, who was watching the exchange with a thoughtful expression. "I was just doing what anyone would do," he said. "No," Vela corrected gently. "Not anyone. That's what you humans still don't understand about yourselves. What seems ordinary to you, wrapping a shivering child in your jacket without hesitation, is extraordinary to many species across the galaxy." "She's right," Captain Parker said, joining their conversation. "The Galaxians would have seen a potential threat or a bargaining chip. The Vexery would have calculated the strategic advantage of helping or ignoring. But you, Reed?" She shook her head with a rare smile. "You just saw a cold child who needed help." Miles felt his face warm with embarrassment at the unexpected praise. "Coalition Command has responded," Lieutenant Taylor announced. "They're dispatching a security vessel to escort us to Outpost Vega, and they've already alerted their Science Council about the evidence." Vela's shoulders relaxed visibly at the news. "Then there's hope for my people." "More than hope," Parker assured her. "The Coalition takes genocide attempts very seriously. The Galaxians will face sanctions at minimum, possibly even expulsion from the Alliance." "And what about us?" Torin asked, speaking up for the first time since the crisis had passed. "Where will we go now?" It was a question Miles hadn't considered until that moment. These 3 refugees had lost everything: their home, their families, their world. "You'll be granted asylum," Parker said confidently. "The Coalition has protocols for protecting witnesses in cases of this magnitude." "But that's just protection," Miles pointed out. "Not a home." Parker gave him a measuring look. "You have something in mind, Reed?" Miles hadn't known he did until the words began to form. The outer colonies are always looking for skilled environmental engineers, especially New Terrapin, with its aquatic habitats. "New Terrapin is on our regular supply route," Parker noted, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Exactly," Miles said. Which means we could visit." Naya finished excitedly, looking up at Vela. "We could see Miles again." Vela's gill structures fluttered in that Neridian smile. "It would be convenient to have a regular connection to Coalition space," she admitted, "for updates on the case against the Galaxians." "Then it's settled," Parker declared. I'll include a recommendation for resettlement on New Terrapin in my report to Coalition Command. She turned to Miles with a knowing look. Perhaps you'd like to be our liaison to the Neridian refugees, Reed? Since you've already established such good rapport. Miles felt his face flush again, but nodded. I'd be honored, Captain. As the Horizon continued its journey toward Outpost Vega and the safety of Coalition space, Miles found himself standing at the view screen with Naya at his side, both of them looking out at the stars streaking past. Your jacket is too big for me, Naya observed, holding up an arm where the sleeve dangled well past her webbed hand. You'll grow into it, Miles replied with a smile. By then, it will be very old, she pointed out. Then I'll give you a new one, he promised. Every time I visit New Terrapin. Naya's silver-flecked eyes sparkled as she looked up at him. Is that what humans call a tradition? Miles considered this. I suppose it is now. And in that moment, standing beside a small alien child wearing his oversized jacket, Miles Reed understood something profound about humanity's place in the vastness of space. It wasn't their technology or their military might or even their intelligence that made humans unique among the stars. It was the instinct, so simple and natural that most humans never even thought about it, to wrap a shivering stranger in their jacket without hesitation or expectation of reward. Sometimes, the most human thing in the universe was also the most extraordinary. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.